Hi, and welcome to the Church Unlimited podcast. Church Unlimited is a vibrant, Bible-based church in North Lakes, Queensland that is passionate about helping people discover the genuine love of Jesus. If you're currently looking for a home church, we would love for you to join us for Sunday worship. For more information about our Sunday service, or to find out how we can best help you, head to our website at churchunlimited.com.au. We hope you enjoy this message from Sunday service.
I'm really excited to be continuing our Grow series this week. Just a couple of weeks ago, Pastor James kicked off the series, and if I was to give it a title other than Let's Grow, it would be Don't Be a Babyhead. So we're deciding as a church that we're going to grow up, we're going to choose to press into God, and we're going to choose to grow in maturity of the faith. And Pastor James talked about, because really our heart as a church is that we would see God's people release in their unlimited potential, so that all across this area people would encounter the authentic representation of Jesus Christ, us, everywhere we go. So to do that, we've got to grow. It's pretty cool, right? Here's what it looks like for us. We believe that this is how we are all called to grow. Firstly, we grow closer to God. There it is. Because in God, that's where I find my identity. It's in the presence of God as I hear him speak and I hear his voice that I know who I am and who I'm called to be. Then as I start to grow more like Jesus, discipleship, I allow him to transform my life. I allow him to change the way that I think and I act. He starts to build substance into my life. Not only do I have a new identity, but I'm learning to live according to it. As I grow together in community, as we grow as a church, we find strength as the body. We're joined together, we're united. The Holy Spirit moves through us. He gives us gifts to encourage one another and strengthen one another and demonstrate God's love in the context of this community. We are strengthened as we are joined together as a church. As we do that, we find that God helps us to grow in purpose. I find out who God has called me to be. I learn how to express it. I learn how to be a minister. I learn how to move from receiving Christianity to being in a representation of Jesus everywhere I go. My family becomes a platform. My workplace becomes a platform. My church becomes a platform where I can demonstrate the goodness of God everywhere I go, with the goal that we would grow the kingdom, that more and more people would encounter life and hope and future, just as we have, that there would be kingdom fruitfulness. This is what we mean when I say, let's grow. We're growing together in the things of God. Yeah, because isn't that the reality of every single one of us here? We're all on a journey. We're all learning what it means to grow in God. We're all learning what it means to grow in who God has called us to be. On one hand, this is incredible news, because it means that every single one of us, no matter who we are, where we've been, we can all have a part of this. This should be so encouraging. We don't all have our stuff together. We're all learning what it means to pursue God and to grow in faith. And so every single one of us can just take simple steps to grow in God and to grow in faith. But at the same time, this should be pretty challenging for some of us. If you're sitting back here and thinking, well, actually, Dan, I think I've got it together. I'm pretty good at this Christian stuff right now. No, God has more in store for you. None of us have finished this journey. Every single one of us is called to grow and to continue growing. So I want to encourage you, whether you're new to church and faith or whether you've been here for a long time, why don't you decide, this week I'm going to grow. Cool, let me find my notes. Today, I'm continuing this series. And I want to talk to you about what it means to grow closer to God and how you find identity in him. Because it's important that we learn to encounter his presence. It's important that we learn to sit in his presence and know who he is. I always want to have a heart that's hungry for the presence of God. Cool. Just going to grab a drink. But while I do, I want you to think for just a moment. What comes to mind when I talk about encountering the presence of God for you? What do you think of when you think of encountering God's presence? When I think of encountering God's presence, when my mind goes to the Bible, do you know what I automatically go to? My mind automatically goes right to the big moments. I think of God's presence and I think of all the good, big, powerful, supernatural displays. I think of, God liberating an entire nation out of Egypt, separating the Red Sea, plagues and power. I think of the big show of God. I think of Israel walking into the promised land and God bringing down the walls of Jericho supernaturally, defeating armies. I think of manna in the desert. I think of mighty moves of God. Even when my mind turns to the New Testament, what do I think of? I think of Jesus, marked by miracles, the supernatural power of God. I think of people being healed and restored and set free. I tend to think about the big moments where God moved in power in ways that were evident, in ways that were experienced, in ways that were seen by people. In many ways, I think I even carry this mindset into the way that I picture encountering God here and now today. I've never seen the oceans part, I haven't seen walls fall down, but I'm still looking for big moments of God's glory, moments where God has moved powerfully amongst his people. And what comes to mind is times of incredible worship. Maybe it's been at a conference or an event. Maybe it's been in a church service where you've really felt a move of God. There's probably been incredible worship, a guest speaker or ministry. There's been outpouring of God's power in a way that we've seen people healed and set free and restored. And you see, God is all of these things. He's powerful, he's supernatural, he's glorious. It's incredible when his presence is on display. And God loves nothing more than to visit his people and let us experience his presence. But I think we need to be careful that we don't fall into a trap of making this idea of encountering the presence of God an event that we go to or an experience that we sit in. You see, we don't sit back. We don't come to church and sit back and just observe the God Encounter show. I didn't come here for an experience like that. Church services are not an event that I sit in and observe. Conferences are not an opportunity to see what the guest minister can bring for me. Sometimes we sit there and we wonder, where is God moving? We watch it like an event and we talk about it like an event. I'm on social media flicking through, God's moving in Asbury right now. That's cool. God's moving down there. That's really... And we make a move of God and encounter something that we might go to. But encountering the presence of God is never an event that I attend. Encountering God is a relationship that I grow in. Meeting with God is never an event. It's not a spectacle to observe. He is a person, and I need to learn to draw close to him. And while I love big moments and displays of God's presence, I cannot become a spectator in Christian services. You see, God doesn't want followers who worship him from a distance, watching what he does. He wants family. He wants people who love him, who will draw close to him and be with him. This is what it means to be a Christian. You cannot read Scripture without seeing this so plainly. From the very first moment that we see God interacting with people, it's not with displays of his power and might. He's not the God on the mountaintop, inviting people to come and worship him from a different distance. He introduces himself so much more personally than that. God doesn't show up in might and power. He shows up as a God in the garden, walking with Adam and Eve, talking with them, being with them, in conversation with them. From the very beginning, God has desired a personal relationship with his people. He loves us, and he invites us to love him in return. But you only have to look at Jesus to understand this even more. Jesus came to draw near to us. He became a man so that we could know him. He loved us so that we could love him in return. He forgave us so that we could walk with him in relationship. Jesus' whole ministry was about drawing close to man, that we could draw close to him. You see, there was a moment in John chapter 4 where Jesus was talking with a Samaritan woman around a well. And she reveals to him what she understands of God. She talks about this tension between Jews and Samaritans. She says, oh, well, the Jews say you have to worship God at all the events that happen in Jerusalem, but the Samaritans say that you can worship God at the events that happen on top of this mountain. She's in a conversation with Jesus, talking about where worship should happen as an event and a location that you should go to. We can't agree on a time and place. And Jesus responds and he says this. Let me read it to you. John 4, 21 to 23. He says, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him. What's Jesus saying? He's just saying, look, you're arguing about the right time and the right place, but you're focusing on completely the wrong things. Stop arguing about where and when. Start searching for who it is that you're worshiping. And she responds to Jesus. She goes, I am. I'm waiting for the Messiah to come. I'm waiting for God's Redeemer to come. And Jesus responds in 4:26, I who speak to you am he. I'm the Messiah that you've been waiting for. I'm the one that you've been looking for. I'm the one that you worship. In that moment, the woman went from talking about God to talking with God. A conversation about where and when suddenly shifted to a conversation about the here and now. I'm here with you. I'm in your presence. I am talking with you. She was waiting for a God on the mountaintop, but suddenly found herself in a conversation with the God of the garden. What a revelation. God wants to speak to you. God wants to know you. More than anything else, God desires that you would draw near to him and be known by him. And this is something that we have to take hold of, because God's not looking for obedient followers. He's looking for family and friends that would draw near to him and know him. What God desires more than anything else is that you would know and love him. In Matthew 7, 21 to 23, Jesus says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your names and do many mighty works in your names? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. There's going to be a time where every single one of us stands before God in front of the judgment seat of Christ. And there's only going to be one question or one thought. The Father will ask the Son, do you know this person? And if he says yes, well, I get to enter into eternity with him, into his joy and into his presence. If he says, sorry, I've never met this person before, we're left to an everlasting death apart from his presence. But we see here, Jesus doesn't care so much what we know about him. He doesn't care what we can do for him. He doesn't care about the church that we went to. He doesn't care about the theology that we argued about, our spiritual gifts or the money we gave. He cares about one simple thing. Did I know you? You might have sat in so many Sunday services. You might have even made it to a few conferences. You might have experienced the presence of God. But the question Jesus asks is, did you ever draw close to me that I could know you? Do you have a personal relationship with me? This is so vitally important. I'll give you an example, just to make it easier to understand. Get you laughing a little bit. I'll tell you a story about a comedian. I won't actually. I'll tell you about my relationship with a comedian. My favourite comedian is a guy called Michael McIntyre. He's hilarious. He says he's got incredible insight into what it's like to be a parent, what it's like to experience. I love Michael McIntyre because he tells these stories and I'm like, I've done exactly that. You've described my life. You not only made me laugh, but you've taught me about myself along the way. I couldn't act like him because he's British and a little foppish. I just couldn't pull that off. But, sometimes I like to tell his jokes like they're my own, and people think that I'm funny. I have been to see him live. I have been in the same room as Michael McIntyre once. By June, I will have done that twice because I'm going to see him when he's here in Brisbane again. He's incredible. I've watched him on YouTube. I've seen his videos on Facebook. I've shared them with friends. I'm telling a whole church about him right now. I'm like a Michael McIntyre evangelist. He's incredible. But when he's here in Brisbane, do you know, there might be a time, and this describes my relationship with Michael McIntyre. When he's here in Brisbane, I might be in the shops and he might be in the shops, and I might see him and I will resist having a fangirl moment. I'll be like, keep it together, Dan. Keep it together. Play it cool. Hi, I'm Michael. No, I'm Dan. But do you know, as much as I have watched him, as much as I have laughed at his jokes, as much as I've studied his material and imitated it and told people about it, the moment that I went up to say hello, he'd be like, I'm sorry, who are you? Oh, but Michael, I've been in the room with you. Michael, I've watched you online. I've seen you. Michael, I've used your content. He'd be like, I don't know you. Wouldn't it be a shame if that's the way that we chose to relate to Jesus? Jesus, I've been in the room when you were there. Jesus, I've read the books about you. Jesus, I've sung the songs about you. Jesus, I've told people about you. And he'd be like, I'm sorry, you should have come and said hello when you were there. I would have loved to have known you. Because as much as I want followers, I'm looking for friends. I'm looking for people who will draw close to me. People that have experienced more than a move in a room. People that have looked beyond the signs and wonders. People that have instead chose to gaze into the face of Jesus and invited him into their life. But we've got to desire a move of God. I want to see him move. I want to see him every time we gather together. I want him to move in power. But even more than that, I need to desire God for himself. I need to desire his person more than his presence. I need to know his face, not just what he will do for me. You know what I love when you look at the life of Moses in the Old Testament? Moses saw incredible demonstrations of God's presence and power. He was called by God individually in a moment with the burning bush. He was given power to work signs and wonders to the nation of Egypt. He led an entire nation and people out of captivity. Miraculous. The oceans parted when he held out his rod. God provided manna in the desert, water out of rock. Moses saw God move in such powerful, powerful ways. But you know what he's going to be remembered for? Being a friend of God. Let me read to you very quickly from Exodus 33, verse 7 to 11. It says, Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside of the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up and each would stand at his tent and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend, that's God's presence, and stand at the entrance of the tent. And the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his own tent door. Thus, the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friends. For Moses, God wasn't a far-off event. He wasn't the God over there. He was the God that was here and now. The God that would sit with him in a tent outside of camp and speak with him personally, face to face like a friend. And that's what I want to speak to you about really today. This is what it means for us to grow closer to God. It's not about being a spectator at more events. It's not about having seen God move. It's about stepping closer to the person of God, individually, personally, daily, knowing God and being known by God, because that's how I find my identity. That's how I'm given faith to overcome. That's how I'm healed and restored and given new life. Today, I want to help you grow personally closer to God. I want to help you become a friend of God, just like Moses was. And I've got some practical tips, and they're all going to be things that you can do. Because I've realized God is really good at this. He has done everything that needs to be done. At any moment, I can draw near to him. At any moment, I can receive his forgiveness. At any moment, I can call to him and he'll answer. The fault is never in God. The opportunity is always in me. I need to be better at being a friend. I need to be better at drawing close to God. I need to be better at making time in my life to know him and be known by him. So I want to help you have more moments of encounter, but not just here in our church services, not at conferences and events, not relying on ministry teams and worship leaders and preachers. You won't even need an altar call moment. You just simply need to learn to step closer to God, that you would hear his voice, see his face, and know him personally. So I'm going to teach you how to be a better friend of God. If I was a cook, I would call this my friendship formula. No, my friendship recipe. But clearly I'm not a cook. But I'm an engineer. I'm good at it. So I've made you a formula instead. It's a lie, I didn't make it. Dr. Jack Schaefer actually teaches this, the friendship formula. He's a behavioral analyst and a psychologist. And he's made his life work studying how people relate to one another. And what he's got here is a formula of key elements that are building blocks of every relationship. And then as you do these, it helps you relate to one another and grow in friendship. It's a friendship formula. I like it because every single one of us can do it, can find something to apply and can learn. Now, I don't want to teach you psychology today, but I do want to give you some perspective that might help you to apply the way that you read the word, might help you direct the way that you choose to worship God and pray to him, might help you schedule and prioritize God in your life with the goal that you might become a better friend to God yourself. Let's have a look at the friendship formula. Friendship equals proximity plus frequency plus duration plus intensity. You've heard it, let's do it, let's go. No, let me explain it for a moment. Friendship equals proximity. That's how close I get to a person. Frequency, how often I see that person. Duration, how long I stay with that person. And intensity. But for the purposes of this, instead of intensity, I want to change it to intimacy. Intensity speaks of the meaningfulness and the power of your conversations. But I want to talk about vulnerableness and truth and surrender. How often do I see God? How close will I draw to him? How long do I stay in his presence? How honest and vulnerable am I when I spend time in his presence? If you want to be a better friend of Jesus, just take any one of these points and do it a little more, and you'll find that your relationship with God will grow. There is always opportunity, and the responsibility is always on me. Will I choose to draw a little closer to God? Will I choose to change something in my life that I would make more space for him, that I would hear his voice, that I would know his face? These are going to help us get better with our devotional time, in our prayer life, in our worship expressions. They're going to help us actively develop a relationship with God and personally cultivate moments of encounter. Not just when we're together on Sunday, but you can encounter God when you're driving to work, when you're reading your Bible, when you're amongst friends and family. You can create moments where you, personally, apart from everybody else, learn to step into the presence of God and know him. I want to be like Moses, who saw the face of God, spoke with him like a friend, and I want you to be the same as well. My prayer is that every single one of us, at the end of our days, would stand before our Heavenly Father and Jesus would say, welcome, I've been waiting for you to come. I know your face. Come in and live with me. I've prepared a house for you. So we're going to learn how to be better friends to God. The first thing I want to talk about is frequency. Frequency actually asks the question, do I prioritize time with God? Because God's got to be a priority in my life. His promise is that actually he rewards those who earnestly seek him. So that means every time I choose to invite the presence of God, every time I choose to prioritize the person of God, every time I determine in my heart that I will seek the face of God, he rewards that. He draws near. He speaks to me. Things that matter, make it onto your calendar. Check, you'll know. Work matters, so I'm there regularly, frequently, all the time, I feel like sometimes. Friends and family. If I love you, I make time for you. And if I haven't, probably just come and ask and I'll get Joe to schedule it in. I make time for rest. I make time for fun. I make time for exercise. So let me ask you, are you in the habit of making time for God in your life? And does your calendar actually confirm this? If you were to look over your week, have you seen time that you have prioritized spending time with God? For some people, time with God is going to church every couple of weeks, praying when I need something, like, a car park at the shopping centre. And that's a good place to start. But it's not a way to build a relationship with a person. Matthew 7:7-8 says this, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks it will be opened." One of the simplest ways that we can draw close to God, one of the simplest ways we can encounter His presence, is to simply make time to be with Him. I'm deciding that I have set time aside and I will seek your face. This could look like reading your Bible every morning or every other morning. It could look like spending time in prayer before you go to sleep at night. It could look like worshiping God on your drive to work, on the train if you're brave. Making time for God could look like intentionally scheduling opportunities where I'm going to be grateful, where I'm going to be thankful, where I'm going to choose to invite God into my day. Take a moment, think about it. If you were to write down all of the things that you did in this week, would you see time with God on the list? Have you planned it? Have you prioritized it? Have you set time apart for it? Or are you just hoping that it might happen along the way? Here is the simplest thing you can do to start building a relationship with God or growing closer to Him. Simply make time for Him more often. Put it in your calendar. Make a date. Keep it. Show up. Say, "God, I'm here. I scheduled you for 7 o'clock on Monday morning. I hope that doesn't offend you, but I am available. Would you come?" Sounds a little clinical, right? But God rewards those who seek Him. And every time I draw close to Him, He draws close to me. It might be time for you to move from going to church every month to every week. Maybe it's time to read the Bible twice a week instead of once a blue moon. It could be as simple as making time to pray before you go to sleep. I'm making it sound easy because on one hand it is. But on the other hand, I've got 4 kids, I know the challenges. What's important? Well, actually deciding that's important. And then I'm going to start to schedule time to do it. Sometimes I think we let the ideal, what we should do, stop us from doing what we could do. I've been told that I should have a half-hour devotion every morning. The very first thing that I do when I get up is to spend time with God. Actually, the very first thing that I do when I get up every morning is just try to calm Oscar down for a half hour. Dad. I wake up to this. Dad. I don't really feel like drawing close to the presence of God right then. And so my whole plan's out the window. Or maybe I should just say, that's not a good time for me right now. I'm going to choose to find another time. I'm going to choose to find another place. Maybe I can't schedule half an hour, but I could choose to read the word for the day. It gets emailed to my inbox every day. I could just read it and say in that moment, God, I'm prioritizing you. I'm choosing to put you in my schedule. Maybe I'm going to choose to pray every time I eat or every hour as it hits the hour. God, I'm so grateful. I'm glad that you're here with me. What's the thing here? I can choose that if it's important, I'll place it in my day. I can actually use my calendar as one of the most powerful tools in my life to draw close to God. The simplest place to grow is just by starting, doing something simple, and inviting God to be a part of it. Ask God, how can I prioritize you in my day in a meaningful way? Use your calendar to grow closer to God. That's frequency. Let me talk for a moment about duration, which asks the question, do you linger in the presence of God? This is a sign of love. When somebody loves someone, really, you don't have to tell them. Like, let's pick on someone for a minute. Hey, how you going, Lydia? She's dating Hayden over here. It's cool. But when they first started to like one another, we didn't know because they started telling everybody. It wasn't because Hayden went around going, Lydia. No, it's actually because suddenly Hayden just wanted to do lock-up at church. You want to, Lydia's around. Oh, sure, I'll be here. As long as Lydia's in the room, I'm going to be around. Loitering, lingering, experiencing. Let me change the subject. Comedy achieved. But the reality is, when you love someone, you enjoy their presence. When you love someone, you linger with them. And it's not about what you're doing, it's about who you're doing it with. So that's why I'm going to be here, and God, I'm in your presence. I'm here to help. God, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, but if you're there, I'm going to be doing it with you. God, you're in the room, so I'm not leaving right now. I'm learning to linger in your presence, because despite everything that's happening around me, the person that's here with me, you, God, is more important than anything else. Have you learned to linger in the presence of God? Now, this doesn't mean that every meeting has to turn into a marathon where we're having a competition to see who can linger the longest. No, I need to go home. Do it in your own time. No. But really, it speaks of my heart. God, do I enjoy your presence? God, am I waiting quietly so I could hear your voice? God, am I hungry for a little bit more? Psalm 46 verse 10 says, "Be still, know that I am God." Can we create a little bit of space in our life just to linger in his presence? Because it's not just that I see him more often, but I want to start to see him longer and longer. I want to create space where we spend time together. This is what it means to linger in the presence of God, to rest in his presence so he can speak, so he has time to work in my life. Do you know, as you rest in his presence, he'll restore your soul. He'll heal your heart. It's as you sit alongside him that you'll learn to understand who he is and how he thinks and what he loves. If you want to grow close to God, meet with him more often. But you should also learn to make space, just to linger in his presence. There's nothing more I love. All right, number 3, let me talk to you about proximity. Do you know how to draw near to God? Do you know how to step out of the crowd and towards his presence? In James 4:8, Jesus said, "Draw near to God and he will draw near to you." Being in a crowded room with someone is so different to spending time alone with them as a person. Speaking to a crowd is different to speaking to an individual. It's different to speak over people than it is to look into their eyes and speak to them and listen to them speak back. Thousands of people gathered and followed Jesus and heard what he said. Few chose to follow him day by day. But if you want to know the gold standard for a good, close relationship with Jesus, you got to look at John. I mean, that guy was a little bit too much, I reckon. He says, it's not just that I was with Jesus, it's not just that I followed him every day. It's that when he would rest at night, when he'd sit there, one time I went and I just laid my head against his heart and I listened. Don't try that with me, it's not a good move. But as much as I make light of it, John knew how to draw close to his Savior. He loved his Savior and he wanted to be close and personal. He wasn't just a part of the crowd, he was John, and I'm loved by Jesus more than anybody else. I've drawn closer to Jesus than anybody else. I'm the one that's heard his heartbeat. I've felt his breath. I can feel God with me. Have you learnt to draw close to Jesus? Have you learned to step out of the crowd and closer to his person? This could look like a number of things. Maybe for you it might look like moving from observations about Jesus to conversations with Jesus. A lot of people start by talking about God, talking about Jesus. Oh, tell me about him, or what do you know of him? This is what I've observed about him. But if I want to draw closer, do you know what I can do? I can just start to talk to him. God, are you real? God, is this you? God, will you speak? The moment I move from observation to conversation, I've taken a step closer. Maybe it means that I'm going to choose sometimes to step away from the crowd and spend time alone with Jesus. Sunday is great. I love to be here. I love to be encouraged. I love to be built up. I love to worship with the body of Christ. But I've got to spend time alone with God. I've got to seek him for myself. Even Jesus, it says that regularly he would get up early and he would draw away from the crowd so he could spend time with the Father. It could be a move closer in the way that you worship. Maybe you'll move from sitting back and being in worship to leaning in and engaging in worship. Maybe it'll look like bringing your heart and your energy in the way that you worship. God, I'm worshiping you with who I am. You know, it's something that really helps me draw closer to God as we're worshiping together is sometimes I do what the Bible says. I sing to the Lord a new song. Now, I'm not very good at it because I find as soon as I start, I don't have the words that the artists use to express their love of God. But geez, it's genuine. When I choose to say, God, this is who you are to me. These are the words that I have for you. This is the offering that I bring in my worship. There's opportunities everywhere you go to draw a little bit closer to God, knowing that as you do, He's going to draw closer to you as well. You can meet with God more often. You can linger a little longer, but you should look for ways to personally step out of the crowd and draw closer to Him, person to person. This is how you build a relationship with God. Let me talk to you for a moment about the last piece of the puzzle, intimacy. Because none of this matters if you can't learn to be intimate, if you can't learn to be vulnerable with God. You can see Him all the time. You can hang around until He wants you to go home. You could get as close as you want. But have you ever had a conversation with somebody, short one, long one, doesn't really matter, but where you've been talking with them and you've realized, actually, as much as we've been talking, I've realized that I've not met the real you at all. You've been putting on a show. You've been saying the right things. You've been behaving the right way. But my heart tells me that you're not being real. Maybe you've been in situations like that. You can't fake it with people. If you try to, people know when you're not being genuine. People know when you're not being real. People know if you're just going through the motions. If you can't fake it with people, you certainly cannot fake it in your relationship with God. We've got to learn to be real. We've got to be brave and we've got to be intimate. When I'm speaking about intimacy with God, do you know what I'm talking about? Surrender, submission. God, I'm not holding back, but I'm bringing it all to you. Every good thing that I've done, God, I'm laying it at your feet. I don't need the glory, it's yours. Every broken thing about me, God, I'm bringing it to you because I need you to heal it and restore it. God, I need you to move upon it. Yet sometimes we try to give God the things that we think He would like. Oh, well, you like this a bit about, I've got this together and I've got this together. And we present a face or a mask of all the things that we think God would like. While at the same time trying to keep behind us or away from Him all the things that we know He wouldn't like. We've got to learn to be real with our Savior. We've got to learn to say, God, everything about me, everything that I am and I have and I've done, I'm bringing it to you. I'm submitting it to you. I'm surrendering to you because you're the only one that I need. God, I need your life. I need your forgiveness. I need you to make me whole. Isn't it a shame that we might let our pride or our own sense of shame or guilt keep us away from the only one that could ever restore us and make us whole? Isn't it a shame that we might let our pride keep us from submitting our life to the one that gave His life for us? Isn't it a shame that we might hold back our brokenness because we think that it disqualifies us? But actually, God has just invited us. If you would stretch it out, if you would lay it before me, I'd heal it. I'd make it whole. I can work every situation to good as you give it to me. Surrender is the heart of our relationship with God. If I'm not willing to be known by God, I cannot know God. It is always our opportunity to say, God, I trust you, you're faithful. God, I trust you, you're good. God, I've experienced your love. I've experienced your grace and your mercy. And I need it again. This is the heart that can draw close to God. And this is the attitude and the heart that makes everything else worthwhile. Because when I come to Him with this heart of surrender, every time I approach Him, He approaches me. When I have a heart that's surrendered, I can linger in His presence without shame, without guilt, just joy, finding His peace and His comfort. You know, when I have a heart that surrenders, I can draw closer and closer and closer because I'm not holding anything back. Actually, every opportunity that I have to give Him something is an opportunity to step a little bit closer again and find new grace and new mercy every morning. This is what it means to have a heart that longs for God. This is what it means to seek his face. Here's the truth of my message. None of us have made it. None of us have everything together. We are all just learning to walk closer to God. We're all learning what it means to draw closer to him. We're all growing. Don't take yourself off the journey because you feel like you don't have a good enough starting point. Don't disqualify yourself because you feel like you've made too many mistakes in the past. Every single one of us has exactly the same opportunity here and now. God, I'm choosing just to draw closer to you as a person. I'm choosing to be a better friend. I'm not going to accept any form of religion that makes my faith an event to attend or just a discipline to obey. Because God's not looking for fans. He's not looking for obedient followers. He's looking for friends and family who will draw near to him, love him, know him, and be known by him. I hope today you're challenged to step a little bit closer. I hope today you're encouraged because completely you can. As you just choose, God, I'm going to make you a priority. God, I'm going to linger because I love your presence. God, how can I draw closer to you? God, everything that's in me, I'm giving it to you. You're the only one I want and you're the only one I need. This is what it means to draw close to God. And nobody can do this for you. This is a choice we all must make by ourselves. Every single one of us needs to decide, will I draw near to God today? Will I draw near to God today? In a moment, I want to create opportunity for us to simply respond. I think there'll be some that just need to respond by saying, God, I'm setting my eyes on you. I'm choosing to draw closer to you today. There'll be people that need to respond by readjusting your priorities. Maybe it's going to your calendar later today and looking at where you're placing God in your life and how often. Maybe there's people that maybe you're here today and I've never personally felt a move of God. I don't know if I've heard his voice. I've been amongst the crowd, I've been in the services and I've seen him move. But I want to feel him personally move. In just a moment, the worship team is going to lead us in a time of worship. And this is an opportunity for you to literally step out of the crowd and choose personally, I will seek the face of the Lord. There's power in response. There's power in how we choose to respond to the Lord. As we worship, if that's you, if you want to experience and encounter the presence of God personally for yourself, there's space here at the altar where you could step out of your normal and say, God, I'm choosing to press towards you today. I'm choosing to respond to you today. God, I'm looking for your face. I'm not going to sit back and wait for somebody else to do it for me because I want to know you. I want to love you. I want to experience your presence today. Would you stand to your feet? I want to pray for us as we close. God, I'm so thankful for your love and your goodness. Father, I'm so grateful that you have done everything that needs to be done so I can simply draw near to you. Lord, I'm sorry for every time that I've been too busy. Lord, I'm sorry for every time that I've sat back and watched as you moved, not realizing that I need to draw near to you myself. And I commit today to seeking you. I commit today to drawing near to you. Holy Spirit, I want to see you move in my life and through my life. Holy Spirit, I want to be a part of the move of God. I want to know your face. Lord, would you speak to us? Even now as we stand in prayer, would you speak to us personally? Would you bring comfort? And would you bring courage? Would you bring words of faith? Would you speak love into this room today? Lord, we love you because you loved us first. And we encounter your love afresh today. Thank you for your presence. I choose to draw close to you today. Thank you, Father.
Thanks for joining us. We pray that you and your family are richly blessed by the love and grace of Jesus. If you're ever in the area, we would love for you to join us for Sunday worship.